Hello and welcome to a new video. Today we're gonna take a look at the top 10 unreleased Pokemon for the Open Great League, where we already know basically the moveset as well as the stats based on the game code right now. Of course, Niantic can still change it, but we have all those stats and moves, of course, already in the code, which is going to be very interesting. Also, if you haven't subscribed already, only 60% of you have not subscribed, so maybe we're gonna get this to 50 soon. That would be very nice, but let's move on to the first Pokemon, which is going to be a fan favorite, and this is the main reason why I actually really put it in here. Kinda does not really deserve a spot in here, but I feel like it has a unique niche for the upcoming, meta in general, because this is going to be Mimikyu, a Pokemon that might be released during the Halloween event. We don't know yet. I hope we do get this Pokemon, but I could see Niantic even further, leaving this Pokemon out there. But otherwise, this Pokemon is a Ghost and Fairy type Pokemon, which is going to be very nice, and has access to the moves Shadow Claw, Charm, Shadow Sneak, Play Rough, and Shadow Ball. Not the bulkiest Pokemon, but also not the squishiest Pokemon either. And Mimikyu going to be able to completely destroy Medicham, which is like basically its main benefit. But it would definitely appreciate somewhat of a bait move for this Pokemon, which would have been really cool. Maybe we're gonna get something for this later on, but this is definitely the weakest one of them all. I kind of made it actually into a list, so rank 10 is the weakest one, rank 1 is in my opinion the strongest one. So we can now move on to rank number 9, which is going to be Clodsire. Basically, if you're following my channel already, you might know already that we're going to very likely get this Pokemon this season. More, I'm not really on a spoiler, but this Pokemon is really cool. Being one of the bulkiest Pokemon in the Open Great League, allowing you to also beat the core of the Registeel as well as the Medicham. So this is the current recommended moveset from PvPoke, which I would expect to change as soon as this Pokemon going to be available. I would expect that we're going to see most likely Poison Jab, Surf, as well as Earthquake on this Pokemon. Because learns Earthquake, yes, Earthquake got nerfed, but Earthquake is kind of mandatory in order to beat the Registeel. As you can see here right now, you're going to lose against the Registeel, even though you're going to resist all the moves of Registeel. But the Registeel is also going to be able to resist your Poison Fang, or like Poison Jab there. And you have to go for Surf, which is non-stab, so in this case, I would actually recommend you to go for Stone Edge most likely. Could actually see Acid Spray having some play on this Pokemon as well in some scenarios, because Acid Spray plus Surf plus Poison Jab is going to do a ton of damage actually, so definitely an interesting one there. Stone Edge, also cool coverage on this Pokemon. Going to be in general an amazing Pokemon here, very, very bulky, insanely high stamina stat, which I always like. I like Pokemon with stamina a little bit more than with defense. Of course, both of them are fairly decent here, as well as the attack is very low. And very cool Pokemon in general to core break the current meta, and I would expect that we're going to see this Pokemon quite often also during tournaments, as you're going to be able to, of course, break the core of Medicham, Registeel, while still having even coverage for Gligar, which is going to be nice. So you're going to actually beat the top 4 Pokemon of the current meta as well, I think, which is kind of insane. So very strong Pokemon here if you're going to get this one, which is most likely going to be at the end of this season. Next Pokemon, a Pokemon that I actually did not expect to see in this list, is going to be Toxtricity. This Pokemon is a very squishy one, as you can see here. High attack stat, very low defense, and very mid-range stamina stat. Gets up to 2941 CP, but as you see here right now, it's a fairly squishy Pokemon. But the moveset as well as the typing make up for that. We're going to have an electric and poison type Pokemon, which basically makes it completely weak against any ground type one. You have no chance of hitting them. But having a moveset of, at least currently, of Acid, which is bad, but Spark and Poison Jab, which both of them are fine. Poison Jab a little bit better. Acid Spray, which is also cool on this Pokemon. Power Punch, which is really cool on this Pokemon. And a Wild Charge, which is also nice. And of course, Discharge, but if you have a Wild Charge already, Discharge does not really help you out too much. I would see this Pokemon definitely having some play as like a cool sweeper here. As you can see, you basically can win against anything unless it's a ground type Pokemon, which here in this case 6 Pokemon out of the top 20 are ground types, and against those you're gonna lose. But otherwise you're actually going to be fine against even the Medicham, against the Registeel, which is kind of wild. But of course a lot of times it's with a bait of the Power Punch, which kind of helps this Pokemon out quite a bit. But I would see actually definitely some play for this Pokemon in the future, as you're going to be very cool as a sweeper with this one here. Definitely very cool sweeper, especially like Poison Jab plus Wild Charge plus Power Punch is just a cool moveset in general, so very excited for this one. Next one going to be interesting. We're going to have the Eiscue here as the Ice Phase variant, which is definitely way bulkier than, for example, the one without the Ice Phase. You see like both variants here on the screen, but the cool thing about this one, it only has one fast move currently in the game code, which is going to be Powder Snow, which is already a very strong one, so it's not really a bad thing. But we're going to have charge moves of Icy Wind, great, Surf, amazing, and Weather Ball Ice, which is going to be also insanely strong for this Pokemon. So this is going to be a very cool Ice type with Surf coverage. But also, as you can see here right now, going to have very decent stats. 2143 overall rating is a very bulky Pokemon as well. Just the Ice Phase variant, we don't know how they're gonna do it because it has the Ice in the No Ice Phase variant. No Ice Phase is very, very squishy. So yeah, definitely we need the Ice Phase variant, which you see there on the left side, of course. And this Pokemon does do a lot of things in the meta. It's a very, very spammy, very versatile Pokemon to use. I think it has a lot of potential to be used. Even though it's a pure Ice type, which I actually didn't know. I thought always it would be Ice plus Water type Pokemon. It's definitely a very cool, strong Pokemon here for sure, and definitely has a lot of play in the meta. Maybe actually not as much as the one before, but yeah, I kind of wanted to also showcase a little bit more of the Pokemon that are not Paldean, because I already made a video about the top 10 Pokemon from Paldea, which I might have to even redo again now, where we have, like, for most of them at least, the moves already in the code. So now we're going to move on to number 6, which is going to be a Paldean Pokemon, which is going to be Spidops. I made a video about it already, basically showing that it might be actually one of the strongest Pokemon that you can get from this region, which is kind of wild as a bug type. And I was actually right. Like, at least right now, it has counter as well as bug bite as a fast move, plus an insane coverage, or like in general, insanely decent charge move coverage there with the Exeter, which is like buffed now, the Grass Knot, which gives it great coverage against like water type Pokemon or ground type Pokemon that you don't really want to face that often. But also you're going to have access to Lunge, which can debuff the opponent's attack, as well as Rock Tomb for flying type Pokemon where you're kind of weak against. So here PvPox says this is the best moveset with Exeter and Grass Knot. I could see Exeter getting thrown away and rather using the Lunge on this Pokemon, but both of the moves are totally fine. But look at this, like this Pokemon is really cool, like beating also mainly like the main meta threats there by even beating the Registeel as well as the Lickitung just because of counter. Even though Exeter and Grass Knot is both resisted from the Registeel, you're going to be very decent of it. You also have like a chance of beating the Medicham. Like all of those matchups are very close though, so like you're not going to be able to completely demolish a Pokemon here. But also, you're going to have very decent stats on this Pokemon. 2052 overall rating is also fairly bulky. Everything like above 2000 I would consider bulky. Like above 2400 is like very bulky. So that's definitely a bulky Pokemon. Not crazy, but like definitely a very strong pick. Next Pokemon is going to be Coalossal here. Also, the pre-evolution is maybe even a little bit better than this one, just by a few stats, but this one is already as decent and definitely more accessible for most people. But Coalossal, getting access to Smackdown, Incinerate, Rock Blast, Rock Slide, as well as Flame Charge is going to be amazing for this thing, as you're going to be able to buff your own attack here. You're going to have the best coverage there with Rock Slide for a Rock-type Pokemon, as well as you're going to have a low attack stat there, plus great defense and great, even better stamina here. So like defense plus stamina is really decent, and you're going to see it here as well. It has an overall rating of 2314 there for the stat product, which means it's a very bulky Pokemon. Not as bulky as something, for example, like an Umbreon, but fairly close to that one, which is really cool as a rock and fire type. Only issue for this Pokemon is just the typing. Rock and Fire is weak to, I think, nearly the most amount of types in the game. Weak to fighting, ground, water, like even rock itself. It is absolutely wild, so definitely more of a decent offensive Pokemon than defensive, even though it has very defensive stats. And you're going to have a kind of equal, win rate there as well. But I'm fairly certain this Pokemon can be really cool, especially in the two-shield scenario, when you ramp up your attack with Flame Charge. So I feel like this is definitely a cool Pokemon to use, and I think it was a little bit better in the recent meta before the move update change here. Right now, you're going to have Gligar, which is a little bit more awkward, even though it says it's a win here. It's definitely more awkward than, for example, the Noctowl. So maybe the meta changes before that again and more goes in towards its favor. But this Pokemon itself right now is really, really cool and hopefully going to be even better in the future. Very good answer for flying type Pokemon, but also against these steel type Pokemon, you're going to have a great time. Number 4 was also one of the Pokemon that I predicted to be very decent for the upcoming meta, going to be Palafin. And we had basically, it was only really decent if you're going to give like this Pokemon counter, and now where we actually have the stats as well as the moves, for now of course can change, in the code, we now see that it actually got counter, which is really nice. But not only this, it actually basically got the perfect moveset that you could have asked for. You have also Icy Wind, which is going to get the debuff on the opponent, as well as Drain Punch, which is kind of horrific, Water Pulse, which is really bad, Aqua Jet, which is really bad, but Acrobatics gives it great coverage. Especially as a water type, being weak to grass type Pokemon, you have 2 great answers for grass types there with Icy Wind as well as Acrobatics. And just gives you also coverage for Medicham, which might be even interesting because Acrobatics against the Medicham going to chunk quite a bit. So this Pokemon going to be very decent if it stays like this later on. And as you can see here right now, very decent bulk rating there as well, 2136, so very decent bulk. But also, as you can see here, winning 58, like having an average rating of 580, which is insanely strong. Actually not even beating the Medicham here, but definitely has the potential of beating it in a 2-shield scenario. And just has a lot of neutral matchups, which is really cool to see. So Palafin will most likely be one of the strongest Pokemon for the Open Great League, and also one of the cheaper ones, which is kind of nice to see as well. As we can now move on to the top 3. Third Pokemon, going to be Corviknight. This Pokemon is something that I think a lot of people expected to see in this list, but I actually didn't expect that it would be as good as it actually is. Now after the recent update, and like with Sky Attack for example, you saw that Pokemon like Skarmory completely got destroyed. This is basically Skarmory with I think a little bit worse stats, but a better charge move there with Drill Peck, which did not get impacted at all. And Drill Peck is I think a 40 energy move, so this move in general is fairly decent and very good on this Pokemon, while you still have very decent stats, especially like bulk product there again, 2130, plus Flying type plus Steel type is a very good combination, being only really weak to Fire and Electric. Makes it really great in the current meta. And as you can see here right now, you're going to beat nearly everything there, which is kind of wild. Of course, you're still going to get hard-walled by both Registeel and Carbink, but I would expect this being the main flying type Pokemon as soon as it comes out, if the basically if the stats as well as the moveset going to stay the same, while not being very overpowered either. Like, it's still very neutral against a lot of Pokemon, as you can see here with the average rating of 524. This is way less than before, but I'm definitely more excited for this Pokemon because I kind of feel like a Flying plus Steel type Pokemon would help with the meta a little bit right now. So very cool Pokemon here for sure. Next one, number 2 on the list is going to be an old favorite. Annihilape is going to be very cool for nearly all leagues. Also, if you want to see this for the Ultra League again, let me know in the comment section. Feel free to leave a like on the video, subscribe if you haven't already, but just let me know by basically giving this video a like if you want to see it for the other 2 leagues as well. So here we're going to see Annihilape being a fighting and ghost type Pokemon, and now we're going to have the moveset in the code as well, which is very similar to the Primeape moveset, which I think they just basically try to copy with that, and I'm fairly certain it's going to change, as I would expect that this Pokemon going to get access to the move Rage Fist and going to get most likely also released during a community day for the Mankey. So most likely the moveset going to be even better than this one here, hopefully at least. Does not get Shadow Claw as we see right now, like would have been able to actually get it most likely. Maybe we're gonna still see a move update of course for that, but Close Combat, Night Slash and Ice Punch plus Counter is of course a great combination. Having the part Ghost typing is definitely also very decent. Still doesn't allow you to beat Medicham because you don't have Ghost type coverage, but as soon as you have Ghost type coverage move you would be able to. But also you're going to be able to beat Registeel, even Lickitung fairly easily here. Carbink you're going to be able to beat, and like most of the meta threats you're going to be able to beat. And depending on the moveset you can even beat other Pokemon. So I wouldn't be even surprised if you would like see someone using not Close Combat but Ice Punch in order to beat Gligar, stuff like this. Definitely I would not be surprised if I would see that. So this Pokemon has a ton of potential, and I'm very excited for this one, mostly the most exciting one from the Paldea region for Pokemon Go PvP. Ghost and Fighting type will be very nice. Same typing as Marshadow, which is definitely one of my favorite mythicals. Can't wait to see this one in the game as well. Maybe this Halloween, who knows. But we can now move on to the number 1 spot. I think a lot of people already expected this, and most likely it's going to be in the thumbnail, which I haven't done yet, but most likely going to be in there. Going to be, of course, the Aegislash. Aegislash, a Pokemon from Generation 6 still, is a very decent Pokemon. This Pokemon is having 1803 CP, only, but you have to have basically the shield form for this one. It has two forms, a shield and a sword form. Shield form is very bulky, sword form is very attack rated and has basically no bulk. In the main series games, basically when you attack, it swaps automatically into the sword form, which is doing then a ton of attack, and if you use a specific move, like similar to Protect in the main series games, you're gonna go back into the shield form. So it's going to be interesting how Niantic are going to handle it. Most likely they're just going to give you the option to change the forms outside of battle and then just decide what you want to use, because sword form most likely gonna be good for raids. This one going to be definitely great in the Great League. And this Pokemon going to get a 2800 overall rating, which is I think the highest, definitely somewhere tied with the Bastiodon, but it has a way faster moveset and a way better typing. Steel plus Ghost is insanely good as a typing, breaking completely the Medicham here. Literally the hardest wall for Medicham, and it would actually make the meta a little bit more balanced and a little bit more interesting, I would say. It might be a little bit too strong in the current scenario like this here right now, but maybe if you give it something worse than Flash Cannon, it has currently also access to Gyro Ball as well as Fury Cutter. And it might be kind of interesting, because I would like to see this Pokemon in the game quite a bit, just to like destroy those Medichams. Like make this Pokemon maybe a little bit weaker than this one, maybe get rid of Psycho Cut and just like, give it Fury Cutter, maybe get rid of Flash Cannon, give it maybe even a worse Steel type move. But even then, like, it's still going to be very, very decent. And as you can see here, Medicham definitely doesn't want to face this Pokemon, because every single move of Medicham is going to be resisted or even double resisted, which is amazing to see. So that's going to be definitely the Medicham Slayer. And this is going to be also it for the video. If you enjoyed it, feel free to leave a like. And also check out the video on the screen right now. See you then. Bye bye.